2, 1, whisper.
Good evening and welcome, race fans, here to the SimRacing.Club Academy Series round number 3 of this current 3-round session. Rachel Whiteford joined by Lewis McGlade tonight as we come to Suzuka for the final round in this triplet of races. And it's going to be a fantastic final round here tonight under the lights in Suzuka, Japan. Lewis, we have the starting grid ready to roll. The cars are out for the pace lap. It's going to be a good one.
Absolutely, we're under the lights here in Suzuka, which always looked brilliant when we did it in the Virtual Endurance Championship. Of course, that race affected by rain. This one looking dry so far. We've got 18 cars to go racing today around this very long circuit. It's a complete contrast to what we had back at Croft, but these 18 cars heading around here, we should have an interesting race once they get started.
We absolutely should. And without further ado, let's run through your starting order for tonight's 90-minute race. On the pole for tonight's race is number 10 of Souza, with a fantastic qualifying effort from him. I believe it was in the bag as a 1:29.967. Fantastic lap from him. Back in second place is Berger. Behind him it's Ukic with Kane in 4th. Lau in 5th place. Prokes in 6th. Scott in 7th. Charlotte in 8th place. Lundvall and Sintez rounding out your top 10 with Smith, Fullingham, Golder, Gazula, Levesdier, Ferreira, Russell and Crab rounding out your grid. Unfortunately, it looks like Mr. Crab will not be joining us. It seems like his internet has scuttled off and left him tonight, so unfortunately the Crab puns will have to go away, much to the pleasure of our director in the booth, Ed. So as we're coming up now through the last corner of Spoon, Lewis, up the backstretch here towards 130 yards to start the race tonight. It's going to be a tough track, it's tough conditions here at night, but we're not expecting rain. It should be a fantastic 90-minute event.
It could well be. Crab actually hasn't been disconnected. He got a disqualification, unsure as to the reason why, but he should be able to start from the pit lane, unsure as to how they're going to work that, as well as everyone else would have already completed a lap. Will they give him a +1 lap, or how is this going to work? I'm not sure as to the reason why he received a disqualification.
But he will not be 1 lap down, of course. Due to starting in the pits, he will start on the same lap. The pace lap isn't counted, of course.
The pace lap
is
in this race.
Oh, in that case, he is 1 lap down. Unfortunate, Mr. Crab. But we will go to your starting lineup now for the beginning of this one here as they head up towards the final section. And it is, of course, Souza on the pole. And the green flag is waving. And it's a good start by Souza at the front. That 10 car getting away with a brilliant leap. Berger and Ukic chasing him now up the start-finish line with a good break to 4th place of Kane and Lau, who are separated. And behind them it is Prokes and Scott forming in the twosome. And behind them, Charlotte and Lundvall. Everyone paired up at the start of this one. Lewis is a bit of a slide there by Souza through the first 2 corners here at Suzuka. And number 2 that was, as he runs up now through the S's section here. Fantastic sequence of switchback corners for these drivers to handle tonight in these very, very fast and nimble little 370Zs.
Yeah, the Souza obviously had the pole position back at the previous round. Oh, look at this from Ukic on the inside of Berger, coming through Dunlop and on the exit, and he's going to take 2nd position away from Berger. That's a great move. But Souza did have that pole position, had an odd issue midway through the race, obviously having served a penalty. Was looking in a great position to actually go on and win the race, but hopefully he can actually translate this one and take the win here. Crab is a little bit further down the road of these guys, obviously is 2 minutes back, just to give a quick update on that, but he is looking like he's going to have a bit of a troublesome evening of racing here. But either way, Souza leads the way by 2.3 seconds. The grid split up an awful lot on that start.
And here's, of course, Crab does still count as being on the lead lap, due to starting ahead of the start-finish line and ahead of the field. So is counted on lap 1, of course, rather than lap 0 here. So he has a chance to make this one back. 2 minutes is not an insurmountable distance there, Lewis. Keep your eyes on what's happening towards the front of this one as Souza makes that gap at the front now. 2.2 seconds between himself and Ukic at the moment, who is just adrift of him. A second over Berger in 3rd place. Kane in 4th. 5th place is Lau. Of course, we were talking before the broadcast, Lewis. We were going to make some jokes about Crab starting alongside the Prawn in 4th place. So the terrible South African accents will have to come out at these points, but I'm not sure where the prawn comment comes from, but you made the fish joke, so we're going to stick with it.
Oh, Kane spun at the Casio Triangle, also the District 9. But Kane in the middle of the road here on the exit of the Casio Triangle as he starts coming down the hill. It just looked like he locked the rears, maybe pulled the gear too low. It's quite a tricky one there because it's sort of in between second and first gear at the Casio Triangle. And as he pulled for first, I'm assuming, the rear end of the car just snapped on him. He was really keeping Berger under pressure though, but into T1, Kane and Lumveld in 8th and 9th position, side by side. Kane's going to run wide here and he may lose the position. No, he doesn't. He does keep 8th position, so that's a good little bit of racing there to hold off at least 8th.
Brave move by Kane up to the inside of Lau there, or Lundvall I should say, on the run there towards turn number 1. Tricky off passing opportunity, but he makes it stick and he will take back one of those places, put him in 7th place for now. And the back is still fairly close. Ukic actually catching your leader at the moment, Souza. We'll have a look at Ukic actually right now. He's only 1.9 seconds adrift of Souza. The gap is coming down now as they'll be running down towards Spoon Corner here. 90-minute race, of course, about 8 minutes in the books already. We are on lap number, I believe, 2 at this stage, so the field moving pretty quickly actually at this point in time. 1 minute 30 is our average lap time we're looking at here, about 1 minute 31 probably for the whole field. We did talk about large spread, Lewis, about 6 seconds from the back of your grid towards the front, so at the moment the field's spread by 20 seconds and that will only expand.
Absolutely, Ukic did a good job. I don't recall what the penalty was, because obviously he gained a lot of time through a bit of a code 80, I believe it was.
It was code 80 last week at Croft for our viewers who weren't there, of course. Failed to slow down during code 80, passed cars and carried on during the code 80 until he finally slowed down. I believe he was out of that race in the end, so they believe
no, he finished second.
Punishment.
He ended up second in that one. I cannot remember what the penalty was for it though, but he did end up in second position, maybe because there was such a large gap to the car behind they didn't actually change that position, but he did finish second in that race and did have really good pace, especially through the midpoint, so he's going to be a bit of a tricky target for Souza, for sure.
He very much will be as things are standing. That gap is staying about constant, about 2 seconds. We'll have a quick look back at Prokes and Scott. They're having a good little tussle at the moment. Those two cars right on top of each other. Scott chasing down the number 38 Prokes. An opportunity to go on board here with Scott as he follows the car of Prokes through the S's section here at Suzuka. In this section of racetrack, Lewis, a fantastic sequence of corners. Left, right, left again. Climbing up as we head towards Dunlop, which is quite a tricky left-hander up and cresting and off camber. So this section, tricky in the wet, but the dry conditions tonight we're expecting for the duration of the race will maybe change our strategy from last week when we knew the drivers that were aware they could expect rain at some point. We saw varied strategy there to deal with that potential rain. It didn't happen, of course, but we know it's going to be a dry race tonight based on weather predictions. So what are we going to see from drivers in terms of strategy?
Keeping it simple, probably playing it on when the consideration that we know that they're not going to switch tyres, they'll literally just run the tank as far down as possible, refill it on the stop, or refill it as much as they need to on the stop, which will be quite late in the race, and just go. We know they don't need to do the whole tyre change and stuff, so they'll just get on with it like that and try and keep themselves consistent. We've been given 2 drive-through penalties as per what happened in the previous round. That's Darrell Russell and Thomas Crabb, who maybe that's a bit of a double whammy for Crabb. He's obviously very far down the grid. He's 1 minute and 59 seconds off of the lead and has been given a drive-through penalty, so he will be going a lap down. And an update on Ukic from the previous round. He was given a 48-second time penalty, which cost him the second position. It puts him in 3rd position, which gave Bryce Lowe 2nd position, who's currently in 4th, if that makes sense. But still, we've got Prokes and Scott coming down to 130R. These two nose to tail, and possibly a good bit of racing here between the two of them. Scott backs off a little bit into 130R as to not make anything a bit too complicated, but that's cost him the move coming down into the Casio Triangle.
Certainly has, as he'll be sitting behind Prokes yet again as they'll cross the start-finish line here to complete another lap here. Going to be lap number 3 they put in the books as we get round the final corner. Should have a good draft run here, Lewis, up towards the first corner. Tucked up under the rear bodywork there of the car of Prokes. Can Scott make a move here? He's going to be waiting very late. He does dive to the inside there, and he'll look to the inside for one. We'll see him too wide through the first corner, and he does just that, and he runs wide. Prokes runs very wide. They're unable to hold it on the outside. Scott will take that move. Nice, clean pass.
No, there was a bit of contact, so Scott's just going to redress that position. It was, looking at it from Scott, he just overcooked it a little bit, made the contact on the apex of the corner, redressed the position, and not really sure what else will be done past that. The thing is, overtaking around this circuit, everyone knows is extremely difficult. There's the overtaking opportunities that you've got down into places like Turn 1 and the Casio Triangle, and even down to the hairpin and stuff, require you to be a bit brave and to have good runs off of corners and stuff. It's a very tricky place to overtake, and that move has put Scott under heavy pressure from Charlotte and from Canet, who obviously is recovering from what happened earlier in the race when he was going for third position, Canet. So he's going to be pretty annoyed and wants to get past these guys fairly quickly.
He certainly is, and it's a good job you have eagle eyes there, Lewis. I didn't quite catch the contact between the two of them, but respectful driving, letting the position go back to Prokes. You're right, he has put himself under threat now from Charlotte and Canet, the two drivers quite close behind these two now. Of course, 14 seconds adrift, this foursome behind your leader, Souza. The gap has widened between Souza and Ukic to 3.2 seconds, so Souza with a commanding lead at this stage of the motor race. Berger and Lau drifting back themselves 2 seconds and 9 seconds respectively behind the other cars in that group.
Ooh.
This is our closest battle we have at the moment. Behind them it is Canet, and Charlotte Canet has gotten past Charlotte before 1:30 hour.
Yeah, that was a bit of Charlotte going, do you know what? I'm going to back out of this one. We don't need to make this more complicated than it is. Backed off, gave the position to Canet going into 130R. Canet gets past and now is allowed to continue on, get onto the back of Scott and pressure him. But yeah, sorry, I think I just saw a move there behind, possibly between Fillingham and Gazula, who Fillingham's in now in 11th position, Gazula in 12th. I'm pretty sure those two changed coming into the Casio Triangle.
They certainly did, and right now they are running just up towards number one, and it's Smith ahead of Fillingham. Gazula behind Fillingham. It was Fillingham that got past in the Casio Triangle there, so move him up a spot. Fillingham, of course, I believe started near the back of your field, so moving forward fairly rapidly at the moment.
Yeah, actually it was Sintez who oddly just dropped behind the three cars in front. He was ahead of all three of these guys. He was ahead of Gazula, ahead of Fillingham, and ahead of Smith. And for some reason, into the Casio Triangle, just backed off of the log. Maybe he doesn't want to get... maybe he's quite new to racing. I don't honestly know, and just got a bit nervous and decided that that's enough for me. I'll back out of this one and not push it, which is a fine mentality to have when you're trying to learn. But he is under heavy pressure from Golder as well, and then Lavazier and Ferreira behind. They're also under pressure. So we've got quite a lot of racing here around Suzuka, considering how complicated the track is for overtaking.
Certainly is. We'll keep our eyes on Scott and Prokes, though. That is, of course, 5th and 6th place. That force them still very, very close, but Scott about to mount another charge here on lap number 5 against Prokes. Will he have the opportunity to make this one work? He's dropped back a little bit now. Gap between those two at the moment is about 0.6 of a second, so it's not a lot here, Lewis. In fact, he might come into threat from Canet behind. Canet is about similar distance back, so this group here very, very close. It's probably the biggest group we have on the track.
I'd say with Canet is that he's going to want to make those moves. He knows he should have been up in about 3rd position at the moment, because he did look faster than Berger earlier on in the race. So the possibility in his mind that he's focusing and thinking that I could have been on the podium. Now, we've got a long race. It won't be too many laps considering how long a lap is around this circuit, but he knows that the race is long, but that he's got the pace to get back through these guys. So I'd say he's probably faster than Scott and Prokes, at least just from where he previously was on the grid. It's just about getting past. In a lot of ways, this place is actually harder to overtake than Croft, and Croft was really difficult to overtake. It's because of the cars with very little slipstream, and there's no effect really on that side of things. So you've got to have it on momentum through corners and stuff like that, which is very tricky.
Certainly is. Momentum is the name of the game at a track like Suzuka. Of course, all three of these circuits really designed to test the drivers. We've got the medium speed, quite small track of Croft, Of course, we had the street track of Palm Beach, and we also have this Suzuka circuit, a longer lap here, something used on the VEC and the, of course, Le Mans Series championships. So a track they'll be racing at potentially in the future, Lewis, and want to familiarise themselves with. Of course, Croft and Palm Beach not used. This is one of the scheduled tracks. Let's look at these guys a taste of what racing can be like and how they're going to experience racing around this, one of probably the most difficult circuits to race on the schedule.
Absolutely, it's a great circuit to teach you things. I'm quite lucky that I've raced around this circuit quite a few times in a variety of cars, and yeah, it's one of those tracks that there's a possibility that it could be on the calendar in season 10 if these guys want to drive in the Virtual Endurance Championship. It's possibly going to be one they have to know. It's not on the calendar for the next season of the SimRacing.Club Academy. We'll get into that as well, because the sign-ups are open for it in the forum. But again, going to more different tracks, and that's sort of like, that's the important bit about this series, is learning very different circuits. And this one, considering how hard it is to attack another car around, but not only that, but it's hard to lap consistently around because of the level of difficulty on the circuit and what it requires. It's a great circuit to learn. Prokes is off the road at 130R. He is going to lose a position here to Scott and probably Charlotte as well. Kane, and he does. Charlotte's way too far back. But Prokes from 5th down to 7th in 130R there. That is quite important. That's one more car that Kane doesn't have to overtake.
Of course it is, and that's one of the troubles of making a mistake in a pack of cars like we have here. You drop back and you will lose more than one spot. Lavazier also passing, I believe, the car of Golder.
Yeah.
Moving him up to 14th place here. And he's looking like he's going after Sintes as well. Sintes not far up the road from Lavazier. This is the group of cars here. So we've got two real big groups of cars, Lewis.
This is a bit of a battle pack. Golder's going to just drop behind Ferreira here, coming down to turn 1 for 15th and 16th position, although he's going to try and keep something around the outside. The car behind these guys is Crab, who is a lap down on all of these. So I think he'll just be focusing on getting through the race, getting the licence and moving on, maybe getting a bit of experience of what it's like in here, just building up patience and stuff like that. Darryl Russell into the pit lane to serve his drive-through penalty. He's going to be in 17th position and stay there. But yeah, Golder dropped back, but he's not, I don't think he's too much slower than these guys because he's keeping in touch.
He certainly is. Golder is hanging on the back of this group, but Shallow at the moment is the one that's looking like a threat. This group, he's catching up at the moment to the back of Prokes. Also, we saw him make that little error earlier on. And right now it is Kane looking like he's going after Scott in the 39 car, so Scott could fall victim to Kane as he tries to recover lost positions from earlier on, Lewis.
Absolutely, Kane's looking pretty quick, especially when you compare him to some of the guys down the road like Bryce Lowe, whose previous lap was a 15.0, Kane's fastest lap a 14.4. Again, not too many laps here this evening in the consideration that we do it by time, which is 90 minutes, so we shouldn't have too many laps. But yeah, Kane's going to try and get on it. He just needs to get past Scott. Scott, though, is just not making any mistakes, so it's going to make that extremely difficult.
It certainly is, and Scott at the moment driving pretty flawlessly. Based on their previous lap times from what we're seeing here, Scott was a 2:14.3, a 2:14.4 for Kane. They were less than 200ths of a second apart between those lap times, so very balanced racing here. Of course, Kane has a draft, that could be a big factor.
What I'm liking here from Scott, though, is he is reacting really well to the pressure of Kane. If you look at his previous laps, he's got a 16.8, a 15.5, but then as soon as he was properly under pressure from Kane, 14.3, 14.6 on the previous two laps. So he's reacting really well to that pressure and is now stepping up that speed accordingly, which is exactly what you want to see someone react to someone in such a positive way. That now he has stepped up his pace, and so Kane's doing a good job there, but it's just meaning that for Kane to get past, he's really got to use any experience that he's got to figure a way of pressuring Scott into a mistake, because that's the only way he's getting past.
Certainly would look that way. We're going to have a look back actually right now to Scott. We're looking at Scott and Kane, I should say. We'll take a quick look back at Gazula and Fillingham. They're looking like we've got some action to form up here. This is for 11th and 12th on the track, and they are nearly side by side there in the S's, Lewis.
Not the best place to go side by side is the S's section. It's a very tricky way. You're looking for a cutback, and then a cutback to the next corner, and then a cutback for the next one, and the next, and the next, and then before you know it, you're coming up to the 2 Degners, and you've run out of room. So it's not the best place to be going side by side. It is a great fun place to do a bit. I've done touring car racing around the East Circuit here at Suzuka, which includes turn 1 and then through the S's section that cuts back on just before the Casio triangle. Have
a quick look at Crab, who's currently running in 18th place, trying to pass Lavezia there.
He just needs
not
to be
on the same
patient.
lap, but he does want to get past slower traffic. See if he can find a way to strategy his way back onto a racing position here, of course.
He just needs to be patient and make sure that he's not making any mistakes, because if he makes contact with any of these guys that are on the lead lap, that is going to be a very problematic situation. Even if he redresses immediately, it's still he's interfering with a race in the lead lap. I'm sure he knows that, but it's one of those things that you can't get involved in a battle on the lap ahead of you. That's just like a big no-no of any form of racing, really. But at the moment, the problem that he's got is all of these guys are so tightly bunched. If it was just 1 or 2 people, he would be able to cut through them and then just get on with it. Whereas at the moment, if he gets past Lavazier, then he's got to get past Fillingham, and then he's got to get past Ferreira, and then he's got to get past Gazula, and then he can make progress. Because outside of that, he's just be getting blue flags and then have to move to the back again.
He certainly is, and we're going to try and find out exactly what happened with Crab to set him down, of course, where he is. And we did hear the penalty given to Ukic was a 48-second time penalty, which of course left him in 2nd place last time out at Croft. We are going to try and find out what's happened to Crab as to why he was held on pit road and put in this position, but it's not looking particularly fair if there wasn't a reason, Lewis, because he's been left well out of order from where he possibly should be running at the moment, of course, running behind Lavazi at the moment. And he's caught the back of this group, and of course 40 seconds back from your race leader. Already made up about a minute on some of these slower cars. So potentially was going to be involved in the front fight here at Suzuka, but of course been caught a lap down, so not an ideal situation for him.
No, I mean, there's a number of reasons what it could have been. For example, he got a disqualification. To explain to everyone at home who may not have seen exactly what happened and what unfolded, he got a disqualification when he was on the grid. Now, that can be for so many reasons. It can be for, I would say this is probably the most likely outcome, which is have to look at on replay, is he possibly got a disqualification for not switching on his lights. Now, in R Factor 2, when it gets to a certain light level, you have to switch on your lights within a certain amount of time, and Crab is going to go off the road here because if he's just pushing a little bit too hard, keep it out of the wall. Oh, he just bounced off the wall there. I think that's going to cause him a bit of suspension damage. But that's just pushing a bit too hard to get past traffic, to be honest. But the disqualification possibly came from a lack of turning on the headlights, which meant that he was then in pit road, which then meant that when he was undQ'd, he still had to start from pit lane. There's nothing he can do about that. And then he still had a drive-through to serve on top of that because of actions in the previous round. So it's all of these things pieced together that has then put him in this position. I'm not 100% sure if it was because of headlights, but that would have been my assumption.
We'll try and find out, of course, but have a look now at Scott and Kane. This pair still at it here as Kane had a look there running from turn 2 to turn 3 as we head up into the S's. Kane still on the charge. Scott defending the position admirably here, Lewis. Managed to get that car ahead at the moment to keep himself out of trouble.
I think in Scott's mind he'll just be thinking, hold on, just keep holding on, because if he does, then Kane will come under attack from Prokes in 7th position, Ancelot from 9th. I will say though, one battle that we're not going to jump to at the moment, but I will keep you apprised on, is Ukic versus Berger, who have now closed up from it was about a 3 or 4 second gap, have now closed up to just over a second, so we could have a battle for 2nd position later on in the race, as Ukic is dropping back from Sousa.
It certainly is, and that gap I think will come down fairly rapidly right now. Berger looking like the faster of these two cars. Ukic not quite holding the speed he's had earlier on. Looking at those times, it was actually about 1.2 seconds faster last lap by Berger. And Lewis, you got something?
Sorry, 12th position, Fillingham and Pereira side by side through the Degners. I've not seen that.
Contact!
Fillingham, bit of contact. And Ferrer's going to go down the inside, proper Kamui style. Oh, and he's going to make it stick. A bit of rub in his race in there, which I don't think we're too much of a fan of here in the SimRacing.Club Academy. But still, a bit of action there as Ferrer gets past and up into 12th position. Those two are not going to be having fun. With Gazula up in front holding him back, I'd expect to see Fillingham go for a move on Ferreira pretty soon as well.
Certainly could look that way. Fillingham looking very, very quick at the moment. Will he go after Fiero? He's right at the back of Fiero. Fiero slowed down there by Gazula. Gazula didn't get the exit he needed. Fiero was held up and he had to pull out very, very late. Fillingham right at the back of these two now. So got a brilliant battle here just brewing outside your top 10. We're too wide towards 130R. Fiero will get through. Fillingham has the inside line. Oh, he closes the door. Gazula closing the door there on Fillingham in perhaps not the most respectful way. Fillingham will dive to the inside for the entrance to the Casio Triangle. Fillingham on the outside now. Will he hold the line? He does just do it. And he doesn't. He gets stuck behind Gazula yet again. Will he have a chance up towards turn number 1? It's looking like he already has a huge run here, Lewis.
I'm not going to lie, if I was Gazula, I would have backed out of that one. I'm quite impressed he held that one through 130R. Fillingham, though, will be on the inside of turn 1. He's got to make sure he doesn't lock the inside front right, which he just does a little bit. Gazula's got the really the best line, the one with momentum. Cuts off a little bit. That's not brilliant. That
contact between the two of them there. So.
Yeah, that doesn't look so great, but it was a decent bit of racing really through 130R and the Casio Triangle. Lavazier is going to hit the back of Fillingham.
Yes, bit of contact there between Fillingham's 36 and the car of Lavazier there, the 13 machine. It was the 33 of Fillingham, I should say. As the two of them making a little bit of contact on the racetrack, as this pack getting very, very bunched up here, Lewis, and people's braking zones looking a little different as they head through the lap here. So Stewart's eyes will be on this group here, of course. The SimRacing.Club Academy Series is, of course, a bit of a classroom series here. These guys working to attain different license classes within the SimRacing.Club, and as it stands, it's looking like they're all being a little bit argy-bargy back in their pack, as we're going to have a quick look at Ukic at the front here. About to be passed by Berger. Berger has a good run, but will he go for it on the inside? For 130R, he does not go for it. He'll stay in line.
This is really quite impressive.
Very close.
This is really quite impressive from Reinhard Berger, who's struggled at the start of the race to get back into the rhythm. However, now he's picked it up. He's looking really strong at the moment. Now closing up to Ukic for second position. Could be really good. Hopefully we'll see the front two of these two in second and third position. So someone at the front of the field showing how you can do a bit of clean racing around this circuit. It's... Did they both cut the chicane? Apparently they both cut the chicane from our cameraman, which I didn't quite see. Hopefully we don't have too much of that. But Scott versus Canet as well, they're all very close. So we've got some close battling in various positions of the grid. Just hopefully we get some clean racing with it.
We certainly will hope we get some clean racing with it. And as it stands, running order is still fairly stable from what we started with, of course. No retirements as yet, of course. Crab is down 1 lap due to a starting grid issue that car had to be towed back and started from the pits. He did have to serve a penalty, a drive-through from the last race, so that has seen him down 1 lap at this stage. Unfortunately enough for him, the crab puns will be very minimal this week. We just nothing for us to get our claws into.
It's a shame, isn't it? It's a real big shame, because that was a glorious part of the broadcast last week. But I say, unfortunately for him, he's just got to keep those claws clean. And yeah, just not make any big mistakes, because he's still focusing on getting that license. I'm sure our cameraman will be well happy. Canet,
of course,
apparently.
We are looking at Canet, but it was something he had to be careful about, of course. He's racing through traffic now. He has to be careful not to drive a bit too shellfishly, and he might be able to make some places without, of course, gaining positions, but he'll show his racecraft. We are looking at Canet now, right behind Scott. Can Canet make the move? Canet make the move? There we go, another pun to go with for this week.
These are getting
Can he get the pass completed?
Terrible. Hopefully he can. But can he? We'll have to wait and see. He is looking like the faster driver in comparison to Scott, but again, Scott's just reacting really well to that. He's dropped off a little bit pace-wise over the last few laps, and now it's like I think it's about 1.3 seconds off of where he previously was. So Scott may be struggling for pace a little bit, and that's what's helping Canet close up.
Certainly is, but Prokes looking very close behind Kane as well at the moment. Martin Brokes is 29 seconds back from your leader, about half a second back from Kane. Kane half a second back from Scott. So this trio of cars very, very close to each other. Shallow right behind them, about 2 seconds drift of this group. He's not far back from this one. Keep our eyes on it. The gap between Ukic and Berger has widened to about 6-7 tenths per second again, so no action at the moment on that one. But things certainly a lot closer in this section of the field here as we head up to the S's once again. And we'll have to see when he's going to... Where would you make the move if you had the ideal positioning, Lewis?
Oh, filling him into the pit lane from 13th. That's a bit of an odd call to do it this early, but fair enough. I think he might have just sped in pit lane. I don't know where the line is. As to where I would make a move around this circuit, honestly, not a clue. I really don't know. In most cars that you race around here, which obviously would, to be honest, for a circuit like this, be a downforce based car, such as an open wheeler, Formula Renault 3.5, the ISI Formula Masters, etc., etc. The best place to really make a move would be in turn 1, but that's generally based on the amount of grip that you'd have from the downforce around the outside of that corner, or the inside really. The problem with these cars is they're not downforce cars. They're sort of a bit slippery, a bit understeery on the front, oversteery on the rear, and they slip and slide, and that makes for some great driving. Very tricky to race, and so through turn 1, where you're struggling with the car anyway, trying to make it too wide is very tricky. We've got Crab pushing, or trying to get his way past Lavazier, maybe pushing a bit too hard as Gazula and Lavazier go both off the road at Gazula again off the road at the Degner. He's going to lose position to Lavazier here for that would be for 12th and 13th coming up to the hairpin, but Crab maybe getting a bit too involved.
Well, Crab certainly wants to play if he can't race for position. He wants to fight on the racetrack, and that might be upsetting a few of the cars around him. At the moment, it's Gazula behind him with Lavazier ahead and Golda also in this group. Crab right in the mix of this one. Should we say Crab is in the meat of this, this sandwich of lead lap cars. But as it stands, he's trying to find just a way to have a bit of fun, I think, on the racetrack. It's looking like he wants to make some places for the pride of it, rather than perhaps just the overall points situation. Of course, points are not really relevant in this series beyond bragging rights. Gap between Ukic and Berger wider again, so I think fairly quiet here. The battle between Kane, Prokes, Scott and Shallow also has spread out significantly at the moment, so we're really not seeing much racing on this group.
Oh, Ukic's out of the race.
Oh, he is.
Why's that?
We have no idea. Ukic has gone off the track, yeah. We have a disconnection from Ukic, which is not ideal. Watching him soaring down the timing scoring screens, that's not ideal. Our first retirement is Ukic from second place, promoting Berger up to second and Lau up to third place. So, interesting battle developing between Scott, Kane and Prokes. This could be... Oh, we have a car off! That is, I believe, was running around Gazula, I think it is, actually, Lewis.
Oh, yeah, Gazula at T1. Let's have a look at the reason why. Crab was on his inside when he went off. Was there any contact? He kind of cuts across him and then spins. I don't know how I'd feel about that one. Again, it's Crab getting involved with the lead lap car. That's obviously not for us to decide. I don't know how I'd even judge that one. It's a shame, though, for Ukic, though, who was in a great position in second. And it looked like we were going to get a good battle for second place.
It does, but we just heard from the stewards suggesting this is Crab's fault. So Crab could be under investigation yet again, which will not be ideal for him. Thankfully, he's got a pretty tough shell, so we'll be able to bounce that one off him. But we are looking up to second place now, as we don't have a battle really for second place, but we do have one evolving, Lewis, somewhere else.
Yeah, we've got a couple of battles. The podium have now separated massively. Kane once again closing up to the back of Scott, so it's looking like we might get a battle there. And I will say that you could just rejoin the race. He will go possibly a lap. I know he'll definitely go a lap down.
At least Crab has someone to play with.
Time screen. Crab does have someone to play with, but Crab, obviously he came into this round with a drive-through penalty, and now he's going to go, well, obviously the next round being next season. I don't know how that's going to work with where he is, but it's going to affect his licence quite a bit. So, yeah, it's not exactly what you would have wanted.
It certainly isn't. And about 5 minutes ago, we hopped into the 1 hour to go mark of this 19-minute race. And we have about 53 minutes remaining, Lewis. So laps winding down very rapidly here at Suzuka. Time flying by in this motor race. We're approaching that halfway point of this one. So in about maybe 8 minutes time, we're looking at halfway. This is where we start talking about pit stops, of course. And we saw that, I believe it was Fillingham came in for his pit stop already. A bit of a reverse strategy there, taking perhaps the fuel he needed. Of course, you can't make the whole distance on one tank of fuel. You'll go perhaps 2/3 of the race, based on what I've seen so far, and perhaps Fillingham taking his 1/3 at the start of the race and the 2/3 at the end, rather than the reverse that many drivers may be taking. So a potential different strategy there for Fillingham, going the minimum number of laps he must complete before filling his tank at the pit stop and going. It will see him in clean air, so potentially a good strategy call there by Fillingham to get some open track.
It's something different. This is the thing where being on the track in clear air as opposed to battling with who running at your pace is generally more important. But his pace at the moment is just on a 2:19.0, which isn't so great. Maybe the car's a bit too heavy, etc. The thing is, I think in this race, the best strategy is the most simple one. You stick the 2/3 in, you run it as far as you can, as hard as you can, you stick the fuel in and you go. It's kind of simple. The thing is you want to fill up as little fuel as possible, because when you're not changing tyres, you don't have that initial limit of however many seconds it is to change all 4 tyres. You've just got however much fuel that you put in the car as your limit. So the less fuel you have, obviously the less fuel you're stationary, the less time you're stationary, so you want to not stick in. Pretty obvious. But the thing is if you're pushing it far in the race, that means that you're on, because obviously they're not changing tyres, it means you're on low fuel twice, which is what you want. You want that ability to be on low fuel. That's what they did in Formula 1 back in the refueling days. They'd run the car as far as they could, because towards the end of those stints is where they were at the fastest.
Interesting insight from you there, Lewis. We remember to come back to you on fuel strategy in future. But as well, a quick look at what is developing on the track. Canny and Scott have spread up. Scott's run wide, I think, and he's been lost the spot to Canny. So move Canny up to 4th place here, taking advantage of the situation with Scott, and that moves him up there nice, solidly into position. Gap about a second, and we didn't see Scott pulling away before. The chances of him catching and passing Canny, Lewis, are a bit on the low side.
Possibly. Let's have a look at Canny. He did his fastest lap on the previous lap. It was only a 14.3. Scott did a 14.5 as well. So these two, they're pretty similar paced. I would personally expect Canny to kind of gap him and move away. But considering how well Scott reacted to the pressure, I wouldn't put it past him for getting onto the back of Canny as well.
It's looking entirely possible, depending on how this one plays out for us, that could well happen. So, of course, we'll keep our eyes on how this one plays. But as it stands, Scott wasn't as fast. We saw Canny was always the one catching back up after dropping away here, Lewis. So, Canny looked like the car with something left in the bag, but we'll have to see what Scott does in this draft situation. Running behind another car, of course, running with empty track ahead of you can be different to chasing someone, of course.
Yeah, Fillingham back into the pit lane for an unknown reason. He can maybe damage, so his race for any decent position is probably pretty much over. But yeah, the way pressure works and stuff like that in sim racing, it's kind of hard to judge how people will react to what. Some people find it a lot easier to sit in front of someone. Some people find it a lot easier when you've got a target in front of you. You can see their braking points and just go, I'm just going to brake a couple of meters later, etc, etc, etc. And then pushing until you, like being on your limit. The most on the limit that I've ever been in my sim racing career, however short it is when I've been following someone. Because that's where you figure out where they're pushing and how much further you can. So maybe Scott will catch up, although I feel it's, looking at the gap now, it's kind of unlikely.
And he is. Fillingham has actually dropped down a lap here. We think he's had to go back into business. He's gone very sideways there. That car not handling how he'd want it to handle. So Fillingham here not looking great. Crab could actually gain a spot on the racetrack, which would be fantastic for him, of course. Ukic is back on track as well. He's just passing Russell. Crab is a little bit up the road from him at the moment. He's about half a lap ahead here, so it'll be a long time before we see Jukic catch Crab and we have a fight. Let's hope Jukic doesn't catch Crab, or plural. Not going to go there. That was accidental. That wasn't intentionally a pun, but you know what? I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, I will say about the position that we are getting. That's starting to brew is Scott and Prokes. Now we've already spoke about Scott, but he's got his second issue, which is coming under fire from a car behind. Canny on the previous lap did a 14.8, and Scott can do those kind of times. So again, don't rule it out. But Scott will have that thing to think about of the car behind as well. So there's not too much. It's half a second at the previous split between the two of those, 5th and 6th position. So expect a battle brewing for 5th.
Well, that could make things a little bit more exciting as we head towards the halfway point of the 3rd round here of the SimRacing.Club Academy Series at Suzuka. Round 3 of 3 in this intake of class, and things have played out fairly interesting so far. We've seen no major disasters between drivers so far, Lewis, in the last couple of rounds, and other than a couple of little penalties for naughty behaviour, perhaps, things have not perhaps been totally dramatic, so nobody likely to completely fail class at this stage.
No, I will say this though, in the consideration of how it is in SimRacing.Club, it's a perfect example in the Academy Series to learn how to find racecraft and stuff. As you've explained, we've not seen any huge disasters or anything like that. Everyone seems to be fairly well behaved. So if you want to take part in an environment such as that and figure out how to hone in your racecraft, the sign up for Season 4 is now open in the SimRacing.Club forum. So if you want to learn and build yourself a license in the SimRacing.Club, go and sign up to that. The calendar will start, the first round is on February 1st at Moors, Autodrome de Moors, and then they go to Watkins Glen and they go to Interlagos at the night circuits once a week, every Wednesday night as soon as the season starts. It's in the same cars as this, so if you want to take part in that, head over there. There'll be a lot of friendly people to guide you through it as well, so if you want to take part, head over.
Certainly can. Do not forget to head over there. In fact, you know what? I would head over there if I wasn't already committed to broadcasting it. So, you guys are lucky. I'll let you all win next season by not signing up. So, you are.
Cars are good fun to drive as well.
Yeah, they look it. These cars look very, very fun. I've had a bit of a tookle around in them, and they are a jolly fun little car. Very nimble, almost MX-5-like in their behaviour, with a little bit more downforce, perhaps. Certainly a bit more horsepower under those engines, but they are certainly nimble little rear-wheel drive monsters and a lot of fun to wheel around these tracks. Suzuka perhaps a bit big for them. Places like Croft absolutely ideal, and Palm Beach, well, that's exactly where these cars probably feel at home.
Moors is going to be a really good circuit for this. I've driven a clear, and I think Ed was in that race. But we've driven... Yes, he was. See, there you go. I've raced Edmund around here. But we've done Clios around Moors. It's a great little circuit. It'll fit right in with these cars. Nice, tight and twisty. Laps aren't too long. 90-minute race around there might be a bit too long. If there's 40 of them, it'll be a bit tricky because it'll be a bit full. But I'm sure though the race around there will be pretty good fun. Let's say Suzuka's maybe a bit big for these cars, but either way, with the way they slide around and stuff through the S section, I bet it's great fun to race.
Certainly could be, and as we hit the halfway point here in the SimRacing Academy round number 3 at Suzuka. Running order as things stand, of course, Souza leading the way, 12-second gap over Berger in second place. He inherited that spot from Jukic, who lost out from a disconnect. That brings Lau up to 3rd on the podium, with Canay in 4th, Scott in 5th place. Behind them it is Prokes, Shallow, Fiera, Smith and Lundvall, your top 10. Behind that, it is Lavazia, Golder, Sintez, Gazula, Russell, Fillingham, Crab, and Jukic. For those guys, of course, Lewis down 1 lap now, so the potential to make a few spots for the guys who are fast, we know, down there, like Crab and Jukic. They could make their way up to 15th and 16th here, potentially higher, depending on what happens.
It's an example where the most important thing isn't about overtaking left, right, and centre. It's just about getting to the end of the race, because you'll gain positions no matter what. You just will. There will be people that are lower down that sort of struggle to keep the car on track, that will make a mistake, and you'll gain positions from them as long as you don't push too hard. And And so, just keep it on track and keep focused. That's where I feel Crab's gone a bit wrong, especially with pushing his way through a bit of traffic and where he's now caught the eye of the stewards and could potentially see himself in a bit of trouble. But was it worth pushing your way through the traffic? Probably not. But at the moment, I guess he might have been a bit agitated by the position that he was put in and wasn't thinking straight. So we'll see what happens with Crab. But when you're in a position like that, it's just about getting the laps under your belt.
We certainly will. And of course, keep our eyes at the moment on the battle between Smith and Lundvall. At the moment, that one's changed hands as a couple of drivers have come into the pits to get their services. And that is leaving us, of course, with Shallow and Fiera ahead of Smith. Actually, Smith might have been one that came in for his pit stop here based on the timing difference. I think he has, in fact, Lewis, because he's dropped back about 40 seconds. Shallow and Prokes and Scott. And I'm looking at the wrong person entirely, as I wasn't even looking at Smith before. It was Scott. And Prokes and Shallow very close at the moment.
We've got a bit of a problem in pit lane at the moment. He's finally found it.
Two cars sideways. Shallow very sideways there, as was Fillingham. And a big problem there is 2 or 3 cars actually sideways there, as 2 cars trying to decide they want to come onto pit road.
Yeah, Prokes and
Berger both making very late commitments to head onto pit road there.
Berger's cost himself a lot of time here by I don't know what kind of went on, but he decided to line up in his box at 90 degrees and then realised that wasn't a thing, and now lined up in 45. That probably would have cost him about 5-6 seconds. I think Bryce Lau might be a bit too far behind, but second position could come under threat for Berger.
Certainly could, based on how this one plays out. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Lowe is pushing the car hard now. He knows he has the potential to make up some time. We'll see what happens. Of course, we know these drivers are unlikely to be taking tyres at this stage here, Lewis, so it's a fuel stop only, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, these all should be fuel stop only, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. It's when they start doing ridiculous times in comparison to earlier in the race. You know they've changed their tyres, but it costs them so much time to change them. I think Prokes is changing his tyres, considering you can see it's just up on the jacks a little bit on the left-hand side. So I think Prokes is changing his tyres. Whether that's an advantage or not, I don't know. It's sort of one of those things where you'll only know at the end of the race. I'd say, considering how much time it costs and how many laps you actually have to play with, which is around, it'll be about 42, 43 laps to play with by the end of the race. Is it really worth wasting 45 seconds on changing tyres? Is it going to gain you that much towards the end of the race?
I'm sure we'll have to find out whether it will gain them anything or not. And, well, let's have an interesting little journey for you. We're going to hop on board with Fiera for just a lap this time as they come past the start-finish line. We'll have it on board here as he's chasing... It's actually Fillingham, sorry, I believe. No, I'm getting it completely wrong. It's Fiera, actually. No, Fillingham is a lap down, sorry. We are getting this one right. I will brain at some point in time. Going to ride on board here with... well, I was going to say that Shallow now. We'll ride on board with Shallow for a lap this time around as he chases after Fillingham. Of course, that was not for position, but still make things fairly exciting, so enjoy a lap on board with Shallow. Well, we're back after that lap there with Shallow, and a fantastic onboard lap there around Suzuka. Having a quick look at Lavazia here and Smith with Golder behind them. Trio of cars, Lewis, here forming up, and a good battle starting to develop.
Yeah, 9th, 10th and 11th position for that one. Nice and close. Smith got passed by Lundvall and has dropped back significantly. It's not a small gap between Lundvall. It's now 5 seconds. So Mitchell Smith possibly struggling for pace here, which would explain why Lavazia and Golder are right on the back of them. Lavazia trying to figure a way around, sort of sneaks a little look down on the inside of turn 1, maybe trying to force Mitchell Smith into a bit of a mistake here. For the 9th position, and that's sort of one of the ways that you can get past around the circuit is by just keeping your nose out, just trying to say, hey, look in your mirrors when you're trying to focus on your braking point, just to unease them. It's a way of getting past. It's just depends on which kind of driver you're against, because I know there are plenty of people, especially the people that you'll find within the Virtual Endurance Championship, the likes of people like Niki Jakovic and people like that will not budge for things like that, so it only works for a certain type of driver.
Absolutely, the likes of Jakovic, very likely to, if you show them just a hint of gap on the inside, they will put their car in that gap whether you intended it or not. So you've got to drive very defensively against someone like Jakovic, but there are other drivers, of course, we know of that's a little bit more patient, perhaps, a little bit more relaxed about how they drive, but aggressive drivers are something you'll have to get used to, of course, in the top championships when big points of pride are on the line. Definitely pays to go for every opportunity. This group here doing a fantastic job at the moment, and as we mentioned, that is Smith, Lavazia and Golder. Separated by about a second for the three of them, so very close on track here as they run down towards Spoon. Yeah, very balanced on time at the moment, actually, these three.
Yeah, I think Smith's holding him back a bit, but he's hitting all of his apexes, which is obviously the most important bit for someone that's learning to drive. The best tip is, sounds really stupid, but just hit every apex. Doesn't matter how slow you go, just make sure you're hitting all of them. Good tip. One of the things that actually helped me, though.
There you go. Lewis with the tip as Lavazia saying hello to the back of Smith there as he runs wide and a little bit sideways through 130R. Carried a bit too much speed, and the back end has stepped out. In fact, he drops a spot there to Sintes as well. Dropped Lavazia down the running order to last in this little train. A mistake he won't make again.
Oh, as the two in front with Mitchell Smith and Golder both come down into the pit lane. So those two coming down for their fuel or possibly tyres as well. At this point, Jukic once again out of the race. So I wonder if that's another disconnection for him.
Certainly looks like it could be that way. He was in last place, so perhaps...
Oh no, he pulled off.
Realising nothing to gain at this stage, so retirement from Ukic there as he will pull off the track. Leaving just Crab, Fullinger and Russell, our cars scored one lap down, 15th, 16th and 17th place respectively. Souza yet to pit at the lead on lap number 23 at the moment. Your leader, 30-second gap to Lowe in second place. Lowe has 12 seconds over Canay in third, and 6 seconds between Canay and Scott. That gap has only widened since we last left it, of course, here, Lewis.
The consistency for Souza right now is absolutely incredible. His fastest lap of the race back in lap 7 was a 1:13.1. The last lap he just completed was a 2:13.1 rather. The last lap he just completed was a 2:13.2. He has lost a tenth of a second in that in 20 is it 23 laps? In 17 laps. He's lost a tenth. That's ridiculous. The consistency is incredible. He is looking to win this race after the annoyance. I've already brought that up, that Jukic just DNF'd. It was actually a disconnection, by the way, as to why Jukic DNF'd again. He is back into the race. We've had Crab on the wall as well in 17th position, so not the greatest round for these guys, unfortunately, but sometimes these are the rounds that need to happen to make you build that part of your sim racing brain to not make these mistakes and just deal with bad luck.
Certainly looks that way as our field now heading up to the 30 minutes to go mark in just a few moments' time. And only 2/3 of the race complete. This is really where we'll see these final pit stops from our last runners be made here. We expect the last few people heading to pit road, like Souza, Lowe, Canay, Scott, all yet to come down pit road, so we'll see them fairly soon, we think. As we know, the likes of Ferraria, Berger, Lundvall have all pitted, Sintes has pitted. As Sintes and Lavazia heading down pit road now, actually. Got those two on pit road from 9th and 10th. We'll see where they come out in the running order. We're a little bit further down the line, of course. Prokes was ahead of them.
It is really quite annoying when you're like the car behind, so in Lavazier's position, you're trying to get past the car in front, and you're sort of like, right, I'm going to undercut him. This is going to be a great bit of strategy, and then you start coming down pit lane, and then you see, oh, they've also just come down pit lane. Great.
Also a really comfortable place to be because you can choose to either come with them or stay out a lap and run a lap in clean air, of course, and get that should we say the overtake perhaps on the pit cycle. So being in second place of the two cars is actually a benefit to these guys, if you will, because you just have the option, whereas if you're leading, you're not sure when to come.
Yeah, there's to be honest, the pit cycle is a completely underrated part of sim racing. There are people that are extremely good at it. The likes of, obviously, in iRacing and such, you've got the likes of Gregor Hutu and stuff like that, who when it comes in will nail
the pit cycle.
Exactly. Fazier's in a bit of a car problem, I think. Oh, maybe he's just getting back under it. But in R Factor 2, we've got the likes of Lars Brugman, who, of course, has gone to success over in other leagues like GPWC, has been in the Virtual Endurance Championship towards the front of Season 8, was actually one of the fastest drivers there. Absolutely knew how to nail the in-lap and out-lap. And it is such an underrated part of sim racing because you're not talking, you're talking lots of seconds here. It's not like a few tenths or something. The time that you can lose from slowing down, getting into pit lane, and then getting into the rhythm of the car and speeding up and getting straight on it is so important. And it's just, I say, it's just such an underrated part of sim racing. You can gain seconds, you can gain lots of positions from doing it right.
You certainly can. As who is close on the track? Ferreira and Berger are close. Berger is about to be passing Ferreira. Of course, these two are both pitted. Actually, no, Ferreira, I don't think has pitted, not. Actually, no. Berger has. Of course, he was running second and probably will filter back there after this one cycles through. But Berger will be catching him very quickly. We'll stay on board with Berger and see where he decides to go for the pass. As they're climbing up through the S's at the moment. A bad place for him to catch. Slower traffic, Lewis.
Yeah, Fillingham is getting blue flags. Fillingham will probably have to concede the position and drop behind Ferreira and Berger. But Ferreira doesn't have to. Ferreira is in position. They're both on the lead lap. This is for 5th position. So Ferreira doesn't have to respond at all. So Berger actually has to get past Ferreira. Fillingham, though, probably should get out of the way pretty soon.
He certainly should at the moment, so we'll see what develops in that position. Those two both will realistically get out of the way for Berger. Berger performing very, very well at the moment. Of course, he has been net running up in second place, but was about 12 seconds back from Sousa when he was running in the correct order. Of course, when Sousa comes down pit road, we'll find out what happens there. We know that Lowe, Canet and Scott have all not pitted yet, neither has Ferreira. In terms of cars ahead of Berger, so we'll see those guys in very, very shortly. 29 minutes left on the clock, so we're at that 2/3 mark now. We're expecting everyone that has yet to pit to be in the next maybe 2 laps. The way this is looking, maybe 3 laps.
Charlotte out as well.
We have lost Charlotte, yes, another disconnect from Charlotte. He's out of the race. That will drop him down a few spots and move a few guys further forward. It's a pity, he had a really good performance so far today.
Yeah, he was doing a really good job, and unfortunately, Ferreira has just got overtaken by Berger as well for 5th and 6th position, just to jump on that one straight away, so Berger's going to clear off into the distance. But that is a massive shame for Charlotte, who's in a really good position, was doing a really good job, and then that was it was actually a disconnection. I've gone back and checked, unfortunately. So yeah, disconnection. Another one to drop back a lead lap, and another one that maybe without the mistakes from Crab, a position for him, but with the mistakes that follow for him, he has unfortunately dropped back even more.
Yes, he has, and well, we'll have to see where that one will cycle through. Sintes and Navazio all scored a lap down at the moment, as in fact, most of the back end of your field are actually from 10th place backwards. Currently scored 1 lap down, and we'll have 2 retirements. Oh no, Ukic actually back in the race. He's only scored 4 laps down now, but Ukic, I believe, is actually back on track. Yeah,
he is driving around. So that's one of the things with R Factor 2. It was introduced about a year or so ago, maybe a bit longer. where if you get disconnected, you can rejoin and you can get back on track, but it will only start counting you again once you've done the entirety of an outlap. Schlott has actually rejoined, so he will get back out onto track. He'll be scored 2 laps down by the end of it, I think, and so will be in 17th position. He's just left pit lane now, so as I say, he won't be scored until he has completed a full 2-minute lap around this circuit. It sucks, but unfortunately that's the way it is.
It is unfortunate, but it's a situation he's found himself in, as Sousa will come up to lap past, I believe that was Charlotte, I think, who's back on track now.
Yeah.
He's back with us again. Sousa, we expect to be coming in fairly soon at the moment. Of course, 4 cars still yet to pit. Scott, Canet, Lowe and Sousa. We should be seeing them in any second as things stand.
Remember
running very low on fuel.
Remember how late the likes of Florian Coates pitted back in Croft, bearing in mind that race, and I'm looking at the stats right now, that race was a 59 lap race in total, and he pitted on lap 52. So he pitted that late
very
in the
much
race.
But of course, let's not forget the lap is longer here and a lot more on throttle time, so I expect them to probably pit a little sooner based on that, because obviously they're burning more fuel.
Yeah, it depends on how much he's pushing.
Sousa in, I believe. No, it's not Sousa in, sorry.
Oh no, he meant Smith and Kazula. We've got 12 and 13.
Kazula, they're both on a battle at the moment, so we'll go to that one. Lewis?
Yes, we've just come out of Dunlop, coming down to the first Degner, and they are both very close. Smith right on the back of Kazula. Kazula's going to run off here. That's going to be a bit of a wide move. They're going to go side by side through the second one. Kazula goes straight for the apex though, which is fair enough. He's kept the position, so Smith's going to drop back by about half a second here. And there is no threat from behind, although I do believe there is a car back there. That'll be low, and that's second position, so they're going to have to concede the position to him if he gets any closer.
They certainly are, of course. That will be blue flags shown to those drivers. Battle or not, they'll have to get out of the way of a lead lap car, making sure they don't involve themselves too severely in that one, because of course that's the thing that will mark them, well, demark them I should say, with the admins. Holding up lead lap traffic and other class traffic will not be respected very highly, especially as these guys are trying to qualify to head towards multi-class series, so it will certainly be a tricky one to keep aware of in the back of your mind. Not something you really want to focus on, of course, Lewis. You're battling the guy ahead of you, you want to focus on that. You don't want to let somebody through, but you have to.
It was Verstappen in 2015 at Monaco, where he dropped behind one of the leaders. I can't remember who it was, but he ended up making 3 or 4 positions through it, just because he'd follow the leader through. And so when
weren't sure what lap he was on. So
well, when people are moving out of the way for the leader, he's then right on their gearbox and just follows them through. It was only until he got to the back of Grosjean that Grosjean went, no, you're not doing that on me, mate.
No, I believe it was in that particular situation that people weren't aware that he actually was a lap down from the leader, so he was following the leader through, and they were just letting him go as well because of the way he was moving through the pack. But Grosjean obviously was told by that point and he held him up, but it certainly made a difference. And if you do, you can actually use it to your advantage, as you say, by making sure the guy in front of you doesn't have the opportunity to close the door after letting the leader through.
Absolutely.
As you said, follow on the gearbox, follow in this case right on the rear bumper, and they haven't got the chance to close that door. They can't really stop you making the move. So as Gazula there and Smith getting a lot closer again, this one's heating up.
Kane into the pit lane, by the way. He's a little bit blocked here by Ukic, who he is going to get past him. So Kane into the pit lane and out of the pit lane again. Currently in 6th position. He may drop down to 7th behind Lundvall, though, which will be a bit of a problem considering we know Lundvall's defensive moves and how good he was back in Croft with it. But he is going to get out in front of Lundvall.
He does
so
just get out ahead of Lundvall. It's about 2 seconds between the two of them, so that one could reignite. We'll keep our eyes on what's developing and see if that one becomes a potential battle for us. But 3 cars still to pit now, as we have 23 minutes remaining on the clock. Sousa, Lowe and Scott, our last 3 cars to pit. Is it even possible, Lewis, and I have to ask the question, is it even possible to save fuel and make this one without stopping?
We were asking that question back in Croft and no one pulled it off. I mean, if you can, in my mind, I've always got it in the back of my mind that if you can get to lap 52 or 59, you can get to lap 59. If
as
you
well,
say
perhaps some people hoping for a late code 80 to use for their fuel stop.
Possible. Again, this is where you and this is a good thing from endurance racing that you'll learn as Prox gets out of the way of Sousa. Don't know why I was looking at that, but it's one of those things that you need to learn for endurance races. A bit of fuel saving, a bit of this and a bit of that, and waiting as late as possible, I guess, to make the pit stop, or waiting for the right time to make the pit stop. Now, unfortunately, code 80 is not something you can predict. It's something that just happens if there's a big crash. But as I say, there's all these things that you need to learn and sort of get used to, and what you're looking for as a good driver for endurance racing is someone that sort of understands strategy and how to look after a car enough over a stint.
Certainly is, and looking at our time and scoring, things not particularly close. Kane and Lundvall separated by about 1.5 seconds at the moment, which is still quite a big gap there. 2 seconds between Ferreira and Berger. Ferreira, I think, hasn't stopped yet. We know that much. He should be lower down in the order. So that's 4 cars we know have not stopped. Sorry, I will correct myself from saying 3. It's 4 cars have not stopped. As you mentioned just in the YouTube chat, Tero, please. Yeah, we are missing Tero Dahlberg. He was fantastic last time out at Croft, of course. Several of the big contenders really not here that we've seen before. I mean, look at the points. Florian Coates, our points leader, is nowhere in sight in terms of being in the race. Neither Tero Dahlberg not in the race. 3rd place at the moment is Bryce Lowe. And based on the points scored today by people, Tony Ukic actually, obviously was the only closest person in points that could have won the race and won the championship. 37 points will not be enough for him to take the lead. No, Dahlberg. Lau is too low down to score points enough to win. But Florian Coates might still take the championship at this point, Lewis.
I think Coates will take the championship. As I say, there's so much that would have to work out in the favour of a couple of the drivers for anything to happen. I think it'll be Coates, because at the moment, anyone else would have to take the win to get in front of Coates in this. It would only be Tero who wouldn't have to take the win, who isn't here. And Sousa at the moment looks a little bit unbeatable. When you Bryce Lowe, by the way, into the pit lane from 2nd position, so that's one of the people yet to stop into the pit lane. But Sousa, looking at his lap times and stuff, again, the 29th lap that he completed was a 13.3. That's ridiculous.
Has had I believe, an issue.
Ooh.
Smith has dropped down in the order.
Yeah, they are
Racing,
side by
actually,
side.
with
Smith
Zula
and Gazula,
again.
yeah, into the S's as well.
Tough place on the track to race, of course, Lewis, and these guys here. We've seen cars coming together in the S's, and no one's made a pass yet in the S's during this race. We've had some little light rubs and taps, but no passes as yet, as Smith definitely carrying more speed there through the S's section. Right up on the rear bumper of Gazula. Can he make that pass? Of course, we've seen him really following hard. But again, yet to manage to seal the deal.
It's again, it's just the example that this track is extremely difficult to overtake on, and the more laps that pass with you staying behind that car, the more annoying it's going to get, and the more ridiculous the move that you're going to be looking for. Now the S's section is a great place to go side by side. It's a great feeling because you never know who's going to come out in front. It's really good. It's all about that momentum change through who's on the outside, who's on the inside. However, it's really not an effective way of going racing, and there's very few people that you can really do it with. At this level, it's not something I would expect to see so much. You'd kind of like to see nice clean moves into places like the Casio Triangle and stuff like that. These slow speed corners around the circuit, which we don't have many of. Sousa into the pit lane.
Race leader heads onto pit road. We'll keep the cameras with him actually at the moment and see what happens from this one. Although Lowe has just gotten past Ferreira, we expected that one to happen.
These guys are very close. In the consideration that Berger Lowe, I don't know about Ferreira. Ferreira's yet to pit.
Sousa back out. He's done with his stop already. That's how short your stop is when you wait this long to pit. Sousa will come back out still in the lead ahead of Berger, so didn't even
long
lose
way.
the lead in his pit stop. Fantastic there from Sousa. Berger will be back up to second place, and third place is Lowe, but the gap between Lowe and Berger, that's fantastic. Both have pitted, as we know. Shorter pit stop, though, by Lowe, pitting so late compared to Berger. That has actually seen him. Berger pitted very early, of course. He pitted when he was 12 seconds behind Sousa. He's lost time progressively. 33 seconds back from the leader for him, but 3 seconds back from Lowe. So Lowe could actually make a move here if he can catch him and take second.
This is the thing, though. This is where we said earlier that the in and out lap, that pit cycle, is one of the most important parts of a race with a pit stop. Now, the thing is with Lowe, and what I'm noticing with him is since he's recently pitted, he's not quite got up to speed. Now you've got Berger up in front, who has been up to speed for the last few laps. He has been on that momentum. He's been pushing and pushing and pushing, and I say, like he's figured it out. The thing is with Lowe, who's come into the pit lane recently and is not quite up to speed, this is what makes the difference between someone who's good on the pit cycle and who's not so great. Because the people like Gregor Hutub and like Lars Webber and all that will come out of the pit lane and instantly be putting in the fastest times they can. Whereas people like me, normal mortals, we just can't do that. That's not a thing. You need to build up a few laps of momentum before you can pull off such lap time, and that's where Lowe seems to be struggling at the moment.
It would seem to be exactly that, so things looking potentially good for Lowe, and we'll have to see how it will filter out towards the end. But we could see, of course, a change of that second position, depending on whether Berger can hold on, but the gaps, they both dropped back, but they both stayed similar in terms of gap between the two cars, so that one will stay on the cards. No other racing really happening here so far other than Gazula and Smith.
Yeah.
We'll look back to that one. Both have scored a lap down.
Oh, Smith! Oh, no!
Big incident there between Gazula and Smith. We'll try and get a replay of that for you. As Smith got on the grass, he came very fast through 130R, got on the outside line there, and he could not get the car back on the track, ran across the grass, and almost a replica of the crash we saw in practice for Daytona 2024 between the Porsche 911 and the 912, where they were going into the International Horseshoe. Do you recall that one, Lewis?
I do not recall that one.
It was actually recently.
Yeah, I know.
So it was again similar sort of incident. We saw something like that happen in Porsche Carrera Cup at Phillip Island. We saw it happen in the Viet Supercars at Phillip Island. And it was one of those instances where you get on the grass on the inside of a corner, you can't stop the car. And that's what happened with Smith there, of course. Zula, unfortunately, innocent victim of that one. I think Smith will be facing a penalty perhaps from the stewards after that one. It will certainly be a black mark against his name. This being the final round of 3 for these guys. Yeah. But both cars still running. Position given back to Gazula. The fight is still on.
I remember the V8 Supercars one, though. I do remember that. Courtney and it was Prema, Alexander Prema at Phillip Island. All right, there you go. We've got the Australian exit out of the way, and what? But yeah, that was an incident between Courtney and Prema coming down into the hairpin at Phillip Island. Very similar kind of ordeal where you get a little bit on the grass and you're completely out of control. And there's nothing anyone can really do, and it's sort of like one of those incidents where you're just watching it unfold. And there's just a crash.
It was certainly something we saw coming from quite a way back when we saw the position he was in. I know we heard you wincing audibly in the commentary box as the two of them came together, or before they came together almost. It's that racer's sixth sense of this is not going to be good. And, well, we saw exactly what happens when you get into that situation. No other battles, we were just saying, of course, on the racetrack. Things very, very spread out, Lewis.
Yeah, everything has spread itself out, which was kind of expected to sort of happen on a track that's so complicated. Because the thing is, with a track like this, the difference between drivers, we were talking about like 6 seconds between 18 people at the start of this round, and with the likes of Ukic and Crab taken out of it basically fairly early in the race. As Gazula's completely off of the road, leaving the final corner, and that means Smith's going to actually get past here, coming down to turn 1. I'm curious to see how much of these cars are damaged, but seems to be alright, and Smith is actually, for the first time in a while, now ahead.
It certainly is, of course, a beneficial position there as Gazula went very, very wide. Can Smith hold on to this spot, though, as we have 30 minutes to go? Looks like he could well hold on to that one. This is our only battle, so we're going to stay with this one, of course. This is 12th and 13th place. Smith and Gazula been very equal all race long, Lewis, and hopefully we'll see this one go to the end.
Hopefully we will. There is another two cars that, we were saying about earlier that might be closing up, which is that Lowe and Berger one. Those two seem to be, I think Lowe now, he's come out the pit lane, had a couple of laps. The gap is still 3.5 seconds, so it's nothing too much to worry about at the moment. But those two could be closing up pretty soon. Along with, there was another one that I saw, it was between Prokes and Golder. Those two are a little bit further apart. But again, that's another one that could potentially close up a little bit towards the end of this race. But we'll keep our eye on Smith and Gazula because that seems to be our closest battle for the moment.
Certainly is, and well, right now Souza leading by 34 seconds. The gap between Berger and Lowe is about 3 seconds on the racetrack. Hannay back in 4th place. He is about 20-ish seconds back from your 2nd and 3rd place running cars. And behind that, the next cars in place, of course, about 10 seconds behind them, it's Fiera and Scott, Lundvall, Prokes, Golder, Sintes, your top 10, Lavazia, Smith, Gazula, Fillingham, Crab, Russell, Shallow, and Ukic running in last place, unfortunately for him. Shallow and Ukic, of course, been plagued by disconnects in this one. Unfortunately, they've lost a lot of time. No actual DNFs, though, so far, Lewis. We've had no retirements from the race, permanently also, for damage. No one's really been in the pits to repair cars so far. Possibly cleanest race of season.
Yeah, a few mistakes here and there. It's kind of what happens when you come to a track where everyone's spread out so much. That was the problem that we had in Croft, everyone's a bit too close. That's the problem that we're going to have in Moors when we go there next season, that everyone's going to be so close, especially with the level of sign-ups that we've got for it at the moment. They're all going to be a bit close. There's potentially going to be a bit of argy-bargy there. But I guess one of those things that you can't know until we go. We have VEC around this circuit, which was maybe a bit too tight for those kind of cars. Yeah, the racing around there was alright. Maybe it was because of a lot of it was wet. What I will say though, for these guys and these circuits, and the fact that they're still in the race and stuff like that, they're keeping going. It's a good thing for obviously their endurance side of racing, actually keeping going for your teammates, etc. And one of the series that will be starting soon and coming to this circuit, which will be Super GT. The sign-ups still, as far as I'm aware, aren't open for that at the moment. But that series does start on the 26th of February, so it's not too far away. It's a month away from the start of the virtual Super GT Championship, which goes to the Lausitz-Ring Suzuka, where we are now, Malaysia, and then Tobin. That's 2-hour races. So some of these guys, I'm pretty sure you will see over in the virtual Super GT Championship.
Certainly is, and we'll have to keep our eyes on what will go from there. Of course, plenty of those events coming up in the next while, and well, the next round of the VEC coming up in about 3 weeks' time. That'll be a fantastic event, don't forget. Have a look on our schedule and we'll tell you exactly what is coming up actually for the VEC.
Yeah, of course, we've also, whilst you're finding that, we've also got the Virtual Le Mans Series, which just had a round at Sebring. The championship at the moment is separated by a single point. At the top of it, I'm pretty sure, where do I leave that? It's between Simtech Motorsport and Team RGPL that are separated by a single point at the top of the Virtual Le Mans Series. The LMP2 category, LMGTs, not quite as close, but still that racing got underway at Sebring a few days ago. We've still got Imola, Estoril, Red Bull Ring and Le Mans left on the calendar, so we've got some good races left in the VLMS as well, and of course the Virtual Endurance Championship. So much going on in SimRacing.Club.
It is, and as we mentioned, of course, the VEC coming up on the 11th of February. There's about 2 weeks' time for them, and that is the 6 hours of Sepang. So that's going to be a fantastic event for that one. And after that, of course, it's the 11th of March, will be Sebring's 12 hours. 8th of April, Interlagos for 6 hours. And finally, on the 3rd of June, we head to the world-famous Le Mans Circuit de la Sarthe for 24 hours of racing. That is going to be a fantastic end to that season, so do not miss it. You can catch it live on the VEC YouTube channel. It's still part of the SimRacing.Club umbrella, of course. But back to Suzuka here for the SimRacing.Club Academy. And Souza is absolutely dominating this race. He's 33 seconds ahead of Berger in second place and 37 seconds ahead of Lowe in third. The gaps are huge now. We really don't have much happening. Smith and Gazula have broken their little pairing up as well here. They've spread out, so literally nothing is happening on the racetrack at the moment, Lewis.
Nope. Souza's consistency is the thing that completely baffles me. He's done such a good job. Obviously, to put aside the disappointment that he had back in Croft, leading away from pole position, looking like he was in a really good position to do great things there, and then it all falling apart. And yeah, as I say, he's done a brilliant job so far this race. Is looking like he's a really good candidate for the future of SRC, and an example of what you can do in the SimRacing.Club Academy. Again, I'd expect to see him in the likes of Super GT, moving up the career properly, moving up that ladder. And yeah, you may see him in the Virtual Endurance Championship not too far away.
It could now be very exciting to see what will happen for him, of course, as that will be fantastic to keep up with. But, of course, this one has been a tricky race. We've seen it definitely be a track that's tested drivers, Lewis, in terms of their personal speed rather than racecraft. We've not seen much wheel-to-wheel racing. When we have, it's been very brief. It's been a corner or two as these guys have tried to deal with this tricky circuit, but it's certainly been a test of speed and consistency. We've seen that from the likes of Souza, Berger and Lowe. They've definitely had a performance. Ukic, we would have seen it from, of course, if he hadn't had his disconnection problems. He's, of course, scored in last right now, but was scored in second. Probably the only one to challenge Souza in terms of performance. And, well, it'll be exciting to see what happens for our next intake in the next week's time as we go to our next 3 rounds. But this one has been a fantastic trio.
Yeah, we do. Oh no, they're a lap apart. We're having our chat telling us that we're 2 people close together, but they are actually a lap apart in mine. I will say with Ukic, the fact that he is still going, respect him. It's a good example to set that, you know, no matter what's happened, he's going to finish this race. I remember seeing a tennis match. Sorry to use the analogy, but one of the tennis players, Istomin, was injured. Kept going until the end, and it's sort of like, it's these kind of things, like with Ukic, who's in a bad position, even with Crab, although he's gotten involved with maybe things that he shouldn't. Schlott's also back after a disconnection. The fact that Ukic has had 2 and he's still racing is pretty testament to that. I mean, I would have probably given up, but the fact that someone's there going, no, do you know what, I don't care, I'm getting to the end of this race. And it's one of those things where you just sort of like, yeah, you know what, I'll do that the next time I'm in a bad position. I'll just get to the end. I won't just quit because something's not gone right. I'm finishing it, and that's a really good example to have in sim racing.
Well, it's certainly the right attitude you need for endurance racing if you actually want to get to the end and stay in that sort of place. So one of those attitudes you really want to have should you wish to actually progress in something that lasts more than 90 minutes, of course. But this race has been a long one for this series, of course. But a little bit less battling we saw at Croft. Of course, Croft, a very tight circuit. It really encouraged that wheel-to-wheel racing. And this is, of course, the real spread we wanted to see in these rounds of very tight fighting, more spread out, and then finally this much more spread out race, giving these guys a real challenge as to what they would be displaying to the stewards, of course. There's Smith drifting through the Casio Triangle. A little bit of a bored moment as we'll have a quick look at Ukic now. Or Ukic, though someone in the YouTube chat said Justin Katsuki. Yeah, forever UKIP, probably, after last week's comments, of course. Well, I wish UKIP was running in last place at the moment. Unfortunately, they're not. Ukic catching, I believe, the car of Fiera at the moment. It's not on the same lap, but he's going to pass him anyway. So look at this one. Ukic, one of our quicker drivers, and now I can't stop myself from saying UKIP, unfortunately. And it kind of at a glance, when I see the name flashing past a Fiera, almost looks like Farage from a distance. So UKIP towing behind Farage as always. There's a metaphor in there somewhere. Yeah.
I have no
Get off my soapbox right now. So we'll head back to the motor racing question. We have 3 minutes on the clock, so we're looking at about 2, possibly 3 laps at this stage. We'll have a look at where Souza is on the racetrack, and Souza's heading up, or down I should say, to Spoon. He's already halfway through a lap here, so I think we're going to see three more laps.
I think we'll see this one completed and maybe 2 more.
I think we're looking at 3 total, including this lap.
Yeah.
2 further laps after this one is completed. So there'll be 1 more lap, then a white flag, and then we have the final lap coming. And no one's close enough to battle, so we're going to have a very difficult time filling for 3 minutes of air time.
Oh, we'll be fine. We've got enough to talk about. I mean, especially when you look at like a track that's this long. We're going to have longer tracks next season as well. It's a it's a good test for these drivers to go to. We don't have anything this long next season, but we still have, of course, Moors, which is a very short circuit. Then we go to Watkins Glen, which is the stock car version. I'm assuming they'll be using the bus stop and then coming around the carousel. And
if it's a stock car version, it will be running the bus stop as part of that layout. Yeah. So, of course, the stock car layout of Watkins Glen, you do go at the backstretch through the bus stop, round the carousel, but rather than dropping down into the boot, which is normal, you cut across the boot and go straight to the penultimate corner. Then it's 1 more corner. So 7 corners total, really, on that stock car layout. The, I believe what's called the Watkins Glen Cup.
Cup, yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah.
The Cup layout, of course, used by the Sprint Cup Series. Lowe has been going a little bit faster than Berger for the last couple of laps, we're just being told, but not looking like it's going to make much difference here, as there's still spread about by 3 or 4 seconds, and if it's a second lap, you won't have time to catch him.
No, I think there's too much between the two of them. I don't think we're going to see much battling across the field until the end of the race, unfortunately. It's just one of those things that it's just the natural progression of things in a race like this, where people will spread themselves out around. I say the group was separated by 6 seconds. This is always going to happen. But this is, to be honest, I actually find it, I don't know about anyone else, but I find it a bit harder to remain consistent when it's just you. You're not battling with someone. You don't have someone like tapping on your shoulder telling you to keep focused. In fact, as Bailey will say, I don't think he's watching, so I might be able to get away with a comment on it. But it's what happened at Sebring when I ran out of fuel. Was that because I wasn't battling with anyone, because Bailey had put us in a position where we were like 2 laps in the lead. Because I wasn't battling with anyone, I had no focus on making sure that everything was right in the car and making sure that the strategy was perfect. I was just doing laps. And then you get distracted, and then something goes wrong. And so, for some reason, it's a lot harder for these guys to actually lap consistently when it's just you. So, to say that they're all still going and there hasn't been any big mistakes is actually quite a large credit to them.
Yes, it certainly is, and we'll keep our eyes on his clock as we tick under a minute remaining here in round number 3 of this particular intake of the SimRacing.Club Academy. And Sousa has had a very, he just starts the final lap now. Across the start-finish line, 1 lap remaining here for Sousa, and it'll be all in the bag, and it's looking like it will go, championship-wise, to Coates, based on what we've seen here so far. Coates will be taking the championship, Florian Coates. Unfortunately, Jose Sousa, who will be winning today's race, will take the 50 points he needs, and that'll put him on, I believe, 83. It will actually move him above Tero Dahlberg here, but behind Bryce Lowe, and I think a few of the others. So Crab, he might stay ahead of. Definitely past Yukig, but Shallow is slow. Shallow is slow. We'll see what's happened to him. Has he not taken enough fuel?
Just listen, the engine's still running.
The engine is running, so letting people past, I believe. Yes, he's multiple laps down to letting cars go past him. Not wanting to get in the way, I think.
He's lifting off a lot more than I thought. Maybe it is just getting out of the way, because now see, once he's left T1, he's again pushing. I think it was just letting people go. It's a lot of lifting to do, though.
Certainly is, as we'll go back to looking at Sousa here as he has 1 lap to go. Running down now to Spoon Corner for the final time. Through the double apex left-hander he will go. And it's been a fantastically consistent race. We talked about his lap times. They have been absolutely formidable. It won't be a championship for him, but it will cap off the season with a race win for Jose Sousa out of Spoon 2. He'll come up the backstretch here, running up towards the formidable 130R. And then just a Casio triangle to go after 130R for Jose Sousa. To cap off a flag-to-flag victory. He pitted late in the race, probably one of the last cars to pit. He came back out still in the lead. He has not failed to lead a lap so far in this motor race, as Jose Sousa, one final corner for him. He'll be out of the final corner. He will come across the start-finish line, and Jose Sousa will win round 3 at Suzuka. 30 seconds behind him will come Berger. Berger still running up towards 130R at the moment. Tough race for him, of course, but Lowe behind him has not managed to catch him, so Berger will hold on to second place here as long as he makes sure he rejoins the racetrack. Would be helpful. Actually, no, Lowe right behind him there, so about 3 seconds back, but Berger has enough time. Berger will come across the line as one of the other cars will miss the corner entirely. Berger comes home taking second place, and Lowe will have to settle for the 3rd step of the podium.
Yeah, I believe what Sousa's just done is what they would classify in Formula 1 as a Grand Slam, which is where you take pole position, you lead every single race, you take the win, every lap of the race, you take the win and set the fastest lap of the race. I believe it is called a Grand Slam. So
it is a Grand Slam. It's the sort of thing we used to see from Sebastian Vettel back in the day.
It's not something that you see too often, and yeah, he has absolutely nailed it. Here, and yeah, what a fantastic thing! I one day would like to pull off such a feat.
Certainly would, and I'm sure one day you absolutely will.
I would have to go up against some true noobs, though.
You can always find them; they do exist. But we will run through our finishing positions in today's motor race, as everyone will come across the line to finish off this one. Coming home with the victory, of course, is Jose Sousa. In second place will be Berger, with Lowe the final step of the podium. Fourth place goes to Cane, and Ferreira will come home in 5th place. Behind that, it's Scott, Lundvall, Prokes, Golder, and Sintez, your top 10, with Lavazier, Smith, Gazula, Fillingham, Crab, Russell, Shallow, and Ukic in final position in 18th.
Yeah, they're obviously still kind of crossing the line at the moment, but these positions aren't going to change. But yeah, it's maybe a bit more of a boring run. We had a good race back in, we had an exciting race back in Croft, something that drew a lot of interest. But you know, this one, to say that they kept it as clean as they did, obviously a few mistakes here and there. It's been a pretty good round.
Certainly has, and we do have Jose Sousa to talk to right now. He's actually still in the car, so sorry for dragging you in here, Jose, but a fantastic race from you. Pole, every lap, and the victory. How do you feel? He feels like static, it would seem, right now. We're not actually hearing Jose at the moment, so we've got a little problem or two. Hopefully we'll get him back with us in a second to talk to. So whilst we wait for him, we'll have a quick talk to Reinhard Berger. Reinhard, second place today, fantastic result.
Hello.
We do have Reinhard.
Hear someone.
Yes, you did. You're in the booth here for the broadcast. We just wanted to have a quick word with you, if that's all right.
Hello. I don't understand you. Should I go out of the game, or who are you?
I don't think he knows where he is. And you are in the booth here on TeamSpeak. We're for the broadcast. How was your race?
Hello. My race. I was not sure if I should start with 100 liters and don't do tire change, or with half full and change tires. But I do the safe way and change front tires in middle. But again, in beginning of race, I have screen to something like low frames per second, but this was not the problem. So blinky or flickering, perhaps his name. I'm not so good in English. So I lost the first 2 or 3 laps, lots of time. But then all was good. But I did a mistake in pit stop, and I did not see my pit place, and so I lost another 5 or 6 seconds. But so the rest of the race was okay. But normally I think I would have done a 3rd place, because of Tony did normally a no tire change race, so he normally had 2nd place. But for me it was good.
Thank you very much for joining us, Reinhard Berger. we'll let you get back to your race. That we distracted you a little bit by dragging you in here, but thank you for joining us.
Hello, can I ask something? In the live stream, do people hear me now?
Yes, they do.
Okay, that's not good.
Well, it was certainly great to actually have you here talking to us, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll have to check if we actually have got Jose Sousa with us now. Do we have you back, Jose?
Hello,
We do have you. Congratulations on the Grand Slam, the pole every lap, and the victory. How do you feel?
I feel pretty great after the disappointment of last week. It's good to have a race where almost everything goes to plan. I had a couple of micro freezes where I hoped that I wouldn't get hit from behind. Thankfully, nothing bad happened and I could get to the finish.
Well, it's certainly a fantastic position for you to be in, and a great way to end this season. Not the championship with that race win, but you do finish fairly high up the points, we believe. How do you feel after that? Obviously, you've told us just how you feel, so I'm asking you the same question twice, which isn't exactly very useful. Anybody you'd like to thank?
And I like to thank the people, the back markers. They were somewhere very extremely helpful. They didn't needed to get out of the way in the way that they did. Some lost maybe 5 seconds to getting out of the way, which they didn't need. But it's great when they make it so helpful.
It certainly is. Well, congratulations to you, Jose Sousa, coming home with the Grand Slam today at Suzuka. The pole, the laps led, the fastest lap, and the race win.
Thank you very much, guys.
Finally, we're going to have a chance to chat to Bryce Lowe. Bryce, third place today. Fantastic result.
Yeah, pretty happy. Gotta say, it was quite an eventful race, but then for most of the time I did nothing. But raced the track and it was nice. It was cool.
Very quiet race for you, certainly, and promoted after Ukic's disconnect there.
Yeah.
Perhaps didn't think you were going to get a podium, but in the end, a podium was enough.
It's handed to me. Yeah.
Of course, it does actually help you in the points. You were one of the highest people in the points who actually ran today's race. It's not a lot of points, but I think it might just be. I mean, how many? Remind me, somebody. How many points will you take for third place?
Wouldn't have a clue.
I wish somebody would tell me the actual.
It's
rules
37 points.
37 points. So unfortunately, that still leaves you behind 100. So you do not take the win, but I think you might be second overall in the championship.
Oh, that's cool. Sweet.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, Lewis, any final thoughts before we end the race tonight?
It's been a great season. It'll be interesting to see where some of these drivers end up. Of course, a couple of them will be coming back for the SimRacing.Club Academy Season 4, which will be obviously starting next week. Moores, Watkins Glen and Interlagos, as we said a few times. And it'll be interesting to see where they go after that, whether they go into Super GT, whether you see them in the Virtual Le Mans Series. Some of them may even jump up to the Virtual Endurance Championship. I'm not sure how that would work. They would go into like Room 2 or something like that and maybe work in there. The possibilities, of course, with some of the series that they may end up in Automobilista, and there's so much going on in SimRacing.Club at the moment that we're not really sure where some of these drivers are going to end up, but that's some of the joy of it with having so many options ahead of them.
Certainly is. Well, you can join us for Season 4 starting same time next week on Wednesday, so stay tuned, and we're going to switch off now, but we'll be back, as we said, same time next week. I've been Rachel Whiteford, and I've been joined by Lewis McGlade and, of course, Ed Trevelyan-Johnson on the cameras. Thank you, and good night.